It was one of the summer's biggest events, the rededication of the Gateway Arch National Park. New name, new museum, new grounds, and some old issues. There was a ribbon cutting, then there was another ribbon cutting, and we'll get to that. It's all in the next story, along with Harry Truman, the politics of then and now, and what Eero Saarinen's daughter thinks about all of this.
On behalf of my father and all the amazing people who made this possible, I open the new park.
Eero Saarinen's daughter Susan was given the honor of cutting the ribbon July 3rd to open the redesigned and reinterpreted Museum of Westward Expansion. For the first time, visitors were entering through the new front door facing the city. Susan Saarinen had been here with her mother for the first dedication 50 years ago. Her father had passed away in 1961 before the arch was completed. This time, she brought her own family, although they did get a sneak peek the day before.
This is a new experience for them, and my granddaughter was so excited last night going up the tram. Oh, yes!
The dedications this year and in '68 opened the arch to the public, but they weren't the first ceremonies related to the national park on the riverfront. In 1939, Mayor Barney Dickman ceremoniously chipped out the first brick to kick off the demolition of the old buildings on the riverfront, clearing it for, well, at the time, they didn't know for what yet. After the war, they chose Eero Saarinen's arch, and President Harry Truman came in 1950 for a dedication. But it wasn't a ribbon cutting, wasn't even a groundbreaking. In 1950, it was a very different story. People had seen what the arch would look like. There were drawings, there were plans. What they didn't know in 1950 was when or even if the arch was ever going to get built.
President Harry Truman came to St. Louis in June of 1950 to attend the annual reunion of his World War I Army Division. But local officials saw this as an opportunity to give a shot in the arm to their plans to build a giant arch as a national monument. The riverfront had been cleared before the war, but it was now just a parking lot.
I'm happy to participate in the dedication of this historic site to the memory of Thomas Jefferson and the early pioneers and settlers of our westward expansion.
There was hope that if Congress would vote the money, the arch could be completed by 1953, the sesquicentennial of the Louisiana Purchase. It would be much longer than that, but the 1950s saw a city aggressively promoting itself and attacking its problems. After Harry Truman dedicated the site of the Jefferson National Expansion Memorial in 1950, he got down to the real business of his speech, the Soviet Union's threat to world peace, and America's resolve to stand up to that threat.
Countries like the United States, which have responsibilities for maintaining peace and security outside the North Atlantic Treaty Area, will, of course, continue to maintain whatever defense forces are needed to meet those responsibilities.
Truman would have to back up his talk sooner than he thought. 2 weeks later, North Korea invaded South Korea.
68 years later, the Korean situation continues to make headlines, and the 2018 rededication ceremony would also have political overtones, not international, but local. There were plenty of comments about the lack of diversity at the dedication, all white people at that ribbon cutting, even as the museum itself includes more diverse voices and a less heroic view of westward expansion. 3 days later, African-American political leaders were holding what they called the People's Ribbon Cutting.
If you look at the photos from last Tuesday and compare it to the one in 1965, it doesn't look any different. And in 2018, in 2018, that is unacceptable.
The Gateway Arch Park Foundation apologized for the lack of diversity at the first event, and Susan Saarinen asked if she could take part in this one as well, saying her father designed the arch to represent the brighter future he wanted to see.
1, 2, 3.
And as for all of the changes that have taken place, the hundreds of millions of dollars spent on the new museum, the grounds, the park bridging the highway. She likes what she sees.
Everything that my father talked about as I was growing up was about context. An ashtray on a table in a room in a house in a city. And it's a beautifully done connection. This new entrance is so much more embracing and beautiful
It's very
than
welcoming.
the original.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. I don't think it was an option in 1947 or 48, but I'm so glad it happened.